Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he loaded the last cargo container onto his transport hauler. The twin suns of Haven's Edge burned hot overhead, making the afternoon work harder than it needed to be. He'd been doing this job for 3 years now, ever since he left the Marines and came to this frontier colony looking for a quieter life. The pay was decent, the work was honest, and most days he could forget about the war that had taken so much from him. The marketplace buzzed with activity around him. Humans and Velkans moved through the narrow streets together, buying and selling goods from a dozen different worlds. It still amazed Jake sometimes, seeing the two species working side by side. Just 10 years ago, they had been killing each other across 100 star systems. Now they shared this colony, trying to build something better together. He secured the container straps and checked his data pad. One more delivery to make, then he could head to the bar and grab a cold drink. Simple. Easy. The kind of day he preferred. A group of Velkans passed by his hauler, their crystalline bodies catching the sunlight and throwing rainbow patterns across the ground. Jake had learned to read their body language over the years. These ones seemed relaxed, probably tourists or merchants. The Velkans were hard to understand at first. They looked so different from humans, with their translucent skin and glowing internal organs visible beneath the surface. But once you got past the appearance, they were not so different. They laughed, they worried, they cared about their families just like anyone else. Jake climbed into his hauler and started the engine. The familiar hum of the power cells filled the cabin. He pulled out into the main street, navigating carefully through the crowded marketplace. You had to drive slow here. Too many people, too many distractions. That was when he saw her. A small Velkan child stood near a fruit vendor's stall, her crystalline body glowing with soft blue light. She could not have been more than the equivalent of 6 or 7 years old in human terms. She held a piece of fruit in her small hands, examining it with the intense curiosity that all children seem to have regardless of species. 2 large Velkan guards stood a few meters away, watching her carefully. Royal guards, Jake realized, noting their formal armor and weapons. This was no ordinary child. He wondered briefly what royalty was doing in a frontier marketplace, but then shrugged it off. Not his business. He was about to drive on when the world exploded. The blast came from somewhere to his left, a massive wave of heat and sound that slammed into his hauler and threw it sideways. Jake's combat training kicked in instantly. He threw himself out of the cabin as it tipped, rolling as he hit the ground. His ears rang from the explosion, but his mind stayed clear. He had been through this before. Smoke filled the marketplace. People screamed and ran in all directions. Jake pulled himself to his feet, his body already moving on instinct. He scanned the area looking for threats, looking for injured, looking for anything that made sense in the chaos. Then he saw the child again. The little Velkan girl stood frozen in terror, her blue glow flickering like a candle in the wind. The blast had thrown her guards away from her. One lay motionless on the ground. The other struggled to stand, clearly injured. The child looked around desperately, lost and alone in the smoke and fire. Above her, a metal support beam groaned. The explosion had weakened the structure of a nearby building. Jake watched in horror as the beam began to fall, dropping straight toward the helpless child below. He did not think. There was no time for thinking. Jake ran. His legs pumped hard, carrying him across the debris-strewn ground faster than he knew he could move. The beam fell in terrible slow motion, tons of metal plummeting down. The child looked up, her eyes wide with understanding and fear. Jake reached her just as the beam began its final descent. He threw himself over her small body, wrapping his arms around her and curling his back toward the falling metal. He felt her crystalline form against his chest, surprisingly warm and solid. The beam hit him like a mountain falling from the sky. Pain exploded through his back and spine. He heard bones crack, felt ribs snap like dry wood. His breath left his lungs in a rush and would not come back. The weight pressed down on him, crushing, unbearable. But he held on to the child, keeping his body between her and the metal, keeping her safe. Through the haze of agony, he felt her trembling beneath him. She was alive. That was all that mattered. Voices shouted around him. Hands grabbed at the beam, trying to lift it. Jake wanted to help them, wanted to move, but his body would not respond anymore. Everything felt distant and cold. The pain began to fade, which he knew was not a good sign. The beam lifted. Strong arms pulled him off the child. He caught a glimpse of her face, her luminous eyes staring at him with something he could not name. Then darkness began to creep in from the edges of his vision. Someone leaned over him, a human woman in a military uniform. Captain Hayes, he recognized dimly. She commanded the garrison here. "Hang on, Morrison," she said, her voice tight with worry. "Medical team is coming. Just hang on." Jake tried to nod, but even that small movement was beyond him now. He could feel his life slipping away, pouring out of him like water through broken glass. His last thought before unconsciousness took him was simple and clear. The child was safe. That was enough. When Jake woke again, he was somewhere else entirely. The ceiling above him glowed with soft blue light. Not human light, Velkan light. He tried to move and found that he could not. His body felt heavy and strange, like it belonged to someone else. A face appeared above him. A Velkan face, older and wise-looking. "Be still, human," the Velkan said in perfect English. "You are aboard our medical vessel. Your injuries were severe. We are repairing what we can." Jake tried to speak, but only managed a weak croak. "The child," he finally managed to whisper. "Is she okay?" The Velkan's expression shifted in a way Jake had learned meant approval. "Princess Sarah is unharmed thanks to you. You saved the daughter of our queen." The doctor paused, studying Jake with intense interest. "What you did today, human, has not been done in 3,000 years of Velkan history. No outsider has ever sacrificed themselves to protect a royal child." Jake closed his eyes, exhaustion pulling at him. He had not known she was a princess. Would it have mattered if he did? He did not think so. She was just a scared child who needed help. "Sleep now," the doctor said. "You have a long recovery ahead. And when you wake, many things will have changed." As darkness took him again, Jake wondered what the doctor meant. But the wondering did not last long. The pain medication pulled him down into deep, dreamless sleep where nothing could touch him. In the marketplace below, emergency crews worked through the rubble. They found 15 dead and 40 injured. The explosion had been devastating. But it could have been worse. Much worse. If a certain cargo hauler had not been in the right place at the right time, the death toll would have included the daughter of the Velkan queen, and that would have meant war. Instead, something else was about to happen. Something that would change everything for both species. The recordings of Jake's heroic act had already spread across the network, watched by billions of humans and Velkans. The queen herself had seen it, and she had made a decision that would echo through history. The declaration would come soon. And when it did, Jake Morrison's quiet life on Haven's Edge would be over forever. The news reached Queen Zavara while she was in council with her advisors. A young messenger burst into the chamber, something that would normally result in severe punishment. But when the messenger showed her the recording, all thought of punishment vanished from her mind. She watched the video 3 times in complete silence. Her advisors waited nervously, unsure what to expect. The queen was known for her controlled demeanor, but this was different. This was her youngest daughter, her precious Sarah, nearly crushed to death by falling metal. And a human had saved her. Not just saved her, but thrown himself over her body, accepting certain death to protect a child that was not even his own species. "Summon the fleet," Zavara said quietly. "I want my personal medical ship prepared immediately, and bring me the records on this human, everything we have on him." Her chief advisor, an elderly Velkan named Korath, stepped forward carefully. "Your Majesty, the human medical facilities are capable of treating him. There is no need for our involvement beyond expressing gratitude." Zavara turned to him with eyes that glowed brighter than usual, a sign of deep emotion. "Did you not see what he did? He performed the Valtoran sacrifice. He gave his life to protect my daughter." A ripple of shock went through the council chamber. The Valtoran sacrifice was sacred, ancient beyond memory. It was the highest honor in Velkan culture, reserved only for the royal guard. To invoke it for a human was unthinkable. "Your Majesty," another advisor spoke up. "Surely you cannot mean to invoke the Valtoran code for an alien. The law was written for Velkans protecting Velkans. It has never been applied to another species." "The law says nothing about species," Zavara replied firmly. "It speaks of those who sacrifice themselves to protect the royal bloodline. This human did exactly that. He asked for nothing. He expected nothing. He simply saw a child in danger and chose to die protecting her. That is the essence of the Valtoran spirit." She stood, her full height imposing despite her slender frame. "Prepare the decree. I will address both our people and the humans within the hour. This human is ours now under the protection and honor of the Valteran Code. Anyone who harms him answers to me personally. The advisors knew better than to argue further. When the Queen spoke with that tone, the decision was final. The medical ship arrived at Haven's Edge 4 hours later. Dr. Kelmar, the Queen's personal physician, led a team of specialists directly to the human medical facility where Jake lay dying. The human doctors had done their best, but his injuries were beyond their ability to repair. His spine was shattered in 3 places. His lungs collapsed, internal bleeding that would not stop. Captain Lauren Hayes stood in the doorway, arms crossed, as the Velkin medical team swept in. She had been at Jake's bedside since he arrived, watching him slip away minute by minute. Part of her was relieved to see the aliens, knowing they had technology that could save him. Another part was deeply suspicious of their motives. Captain Hayes, Dr. Kelmar addressed her formally. We are here under direct orders from Queen Zavara. This human will be transferred to our vessel immediately. He's a human citizen, Lauren replied. I need authorization before I can release him to you. He is dying, Kelmar said simply. In approximately 20 minutes, his brain will begin to shut down from oxygen deprivation. Your technology cannot save him, ours can. You may request authorization if you wish, but I suspect Jake Morrison would prefer to live. Lauren looked at Jake's pale face, his shallow breathing, the machine struggling to keep him alive. She thought about regulations and protocols. Then she thought about a man who threw himself on top of a child without hesitation. Take him, she said, but I'm coming with you. I want to see exactly what you do to him. Kelmar nodded. That is acceptable. You may observe from the medical bay gallery. They moved Jake carefully onto a Velkin medical pod, a sleek device that hummed with quiet power. Lauren followed as they transported him to the ship waiting in orbit. She had never been aboard a Velkin vessel before. Everything looked organic somehow, flowing lines instead of hard angles, lights that seemed to breathe rather than simply illuminate. In the medical bay, Kelmar and his team worked with incredible precision. They placed Jake in a regeneration tank, a cylindrical chamber filled with glowing blue fluid. Machines she did not understand attached to his body, reading every detail of his injuries. His spine is the primary concern, Kelmar explained to Lauren through the gallery window. We will need to rebuild it using synthetic neural pathways. The process will take several weeks. Synthetic? Lauren asked. You mean artificial? Biosynthetic, Kelmar corrected. Grown from his own cells but enhanced with our technology. He will be stronger than before, faster, more resilient. It is necessary to save his life. You're going to change him, Lauren said, not quite a question. We are going to save him, Kelmar replied. The changes are unavoidable, but he will still be himself. Still human, just enhanced. Lauren watched the blue fluid swirl around Jake's floating body. She wondered what he would think when he woke up, what he would feel knowing he was no longer entirely human. She wondered if he would hate them for it, or understand that this was the only way. While Jake floated in his healing sleep, Queen Zavara made her declaration. The broadcast went out across both human and Velkin networks simultaneously. Billions watched as she stood before the cameras, her daughter Sarah beside her. People of the Velkin Empire and citizens of humanity, she began, her voice carrying the weight of authority. Today I invoke an ancient law that has not been used in 1,000 years. The Valtoran Code states that any being who sacrifices their life to protect a member of the royal bloodline becomes forever bound to our empire under its highest honor and protection. She placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. The young princess looked small next to her mother, but her eyes were steady and serious. Jake Morrison, a human from your colony on Haven's Edge, threw himself over my daughter to shield her from death. He expected nothing in return. He did not know she was royalty. He simply saw a child in danger and chose to protect her with his own life. This is the truest expression of the Valtarian spirit that I have ever witnessed. The Queen's eyes seemed to look directly through the camera, reaching everyone watching. Therefore I declare before both our peoples that Jake Morrison is ours. He is under the protection of the Velkin Empire. He is honored as a member of the royal household. Any who would harm him will answer to me directly. She paused, letting the words sink in. Some will question this decision. Some will say that the Valtoran Code was never meant for humans, but I say to them that honor knows no species. Courage knows no species. Love for a helpless child knows no species. Jake Morrison has shown us that we are not as different as we once believed. Let his sacrifice be a bridge between our peoples, a reminder that we can choose to protect each other rather than destroy each other. The broadcast ended, and immediately, chaos erupted across the colony. The human colonial administration held emergency meetings. What did it mean that one of their citizens was now claimed by an alien empire? Was this a political move, a threat? Some saw it as an honor, others as a trap. The Terra Liberation Front, the terrorist group responsible for the bombing, released their own statement. They called Jake a traitor, claimed he had been working with the aliens all along. The bombing was meant to kill the princess, they said proudly, to show humanity that they would never bow to alien rule. They promised more attacks would come. Even among the Vulcans, opinions divided sharply. Some nobles felt the queen had gone too far, extending sacred traditions to an alien species. Others saw wisdom in her choice, recognizing the symbolic power of the gesture. Through it all, Jake slept peacefully in his regeneration tank, unaware that his simple act of heroism had ignited a firestorm of controversy that threatened to tear apart the fragile peace between two civilizations. Lauren watched over him from the gallery. Day after day, she saw his body slowly heal, saw the biosynthetic materials integrate with his spine, saw the machines rebuilding him piece by piece. She thought about what would happen when he woke up, what world he would wake up to. He has no idea what's waiting for him, she said to Dr. Kelmar one evening. The Vulcan doctor nodded slowly. Few heroes do, but he will adapt. Humans are remarkably resilient. And now, he has the full support of the Vulcan Empire behind him. Whether he wants it or not, Lauren smiled grimly. That's what worries me. Jake Morrison just wanted to haul cargo and live a quiet life. Instead, he's become the most famous person in two civilizations overnight. Fame is often the price of doing what is right, Kelmar observed. He will learn to bear it. We will help him. In the tank, Jake's eyes moved beneath closed lids. Deep in his healing sleep, he dreamed of falling beams and frightened children, of explosions and pain, but also of something else. He dreamed of light, of vast spaces between stars, of voices speaking in languages he did not know but somehow understood. The Vulcan medical technology was doing more than just healing his body. It was changing the way his mind worked, opening connections that had never existed before in a human brain. Jake woke slowly, like surfacing from deep water. His eyes opened to soft blue light and he lay still for a moment, trying to remember where he was. The last thing he recalled clearly was pain. Crushing, overwhelming pain as metal fell on his back. Then darkness. Now there was no pain at all. He felt strange, light somehow, as if his body weighed nothing. He tried to move his hand and was startled by how quickly it responded. Every motion felt crisp and precise, like his nervous system had been tuned to a higher frequency. Good morning, Jake Morrison. He turned his head toward the voice. A Vulcan stood beside his bed, old and dignified looking. The doctor from before, he realized, though he only had fragmented memories of their first meeting. How long? Jake's voice came out rough but strong. He cleared his throat and tried again. How long was I out? 3 weeks, Dr. Kelmar replied. Your injuries were extensive. We had to rebuild much of your spinal column and repair significant damage to your internal organs. Jake sat up, expecting to feel weak or dizzy. Instead, he felt better than he had in years. He looked down at his hands, flexing his fingers. They looked normal enough, but somehow he could sense more. He felt the air moving around his skin, heard the quiet hum of the ship's systems in ways he never had before. What did you do to me? He asked quietly. We saved your life, Kelmar said. But yes, there were changes. Your spine now contains biosynthetic neural pathways that integrate with your natural nervous system. Your bones have been reinforced, your muscles enhanced. You are still human, Jake Morrison, but you are also more than you were. Jake absorbed this information slowly. He should have been angry, he thought. They had changed him without his permission. But he had been dying. What choice had there been? The child, he said suddenly, the memory rushing back. The little girl. Is she okay? Kelmar's expression shifted in the Vulcan way that indicated warmth. Princess Sarah is perfectly well, thanks to you. She has been asking about you every day. The Queen herself wishes to meet with you when you are ready. The Queen? Jake blinked. Why would the Queen want to meet me? Because you saved her daughter, a new voice said. Jake looked toward the door and saw Captain Hayes entering the room. She looked tired with dark circles under her eyes, but she smiled when she saw him sitting up. "Captain," Jake greeted her, relieved to see a familiar face. "What's going on? Why all this attention over me doing the right thing?" Lauren pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. "Jake, a lot has happened while you were sleeping. The Queen has invoked something called the Valtoran Code. Do you know what that means?" Jake shook his head. "It means," Lauren continued carefully, "that you are now considered part of the Velkan royal household, under their protection and honor. The Queen has declared that you belong to the Empire now." Jake stared at her. "I belong to them. Like property?" "Not like that," Kelmar interjected. "The Valtoran Code is about honor, not ownership. You performed a sacred act, sacrificing yourself to protect royal blood. This binds you to the Empire in a relationship of mutual respect and protection. You are not a slave or a servant. You are family." The word hung in the air. Family. Jake had lost his own family years ago in the war. The concept felt alien to him now, strange and uncomfortable. "I didn't ask for this," he said finally. "I just saw a kid in danger. Anyone would have done the same." "But they didn't," Lauren replied gently. "You did. And now you're the most famous person in 2 civilizations. Your face has been on every news feed for 3 weeks. Some people are calling you a hero. Others are calling you a traitor." Jake rubbed his face with both hands. This was too much, too fast. He had wanted a quiet life. Just work, rest, maybe a drink with friends occasionally. Nothing complicated. "Nothing important. Can I see her?" he asked. "And the princess? I'd like to see that she's really okay." Kelmar nodded. "She is waiting outside, in fact. She has been very patient." The doctor opened the door and spoke briefly in the Velkan language. A moment later, Princess Sarah entered the room. She looked so small, Jake thought. Her crystalline body glowed with healthy blue light, much brighter than it had been in the marketplace. She walked up to his bedside slowly, her luminous eyes fixed on his face. "Hello," Jake said, not sure what else to say to alien royalty. "You saved me," Sarah said in clear English, her voice high and young. "The metal was falling and you covered me with your body. You got hurt because of me." "Hey," Jake said softly. "I'm okay now. And you're okay. That's all that matters." "My mother says you are family now," Sarah continued. "She says I should visit you every day so we can learn about each other. Is that acceptable?" Jake found himself smiling despite everything. There was something disarming about her directness, her innocent curiosity. "Yeah," he said. "That's acceptable. I'd like that." Sarah's glow brightened, which he had learned meant happiness. She reached out tentatively and touched his hand. Her crystalline fingers felt warm and smooth like polished glass heated in the sun. "Thank you, Jake Morrison," she said seriously. "I will never forget what you did." Over the next few days, Jake began to understand his new situation. He was aboard the Queen's personal medical vessel, orbiting Haven's Edge. He had been declared a member of the royal household under ancient Velkan law. His body had been rebuilt with alien technology, making him stronger and faster than any normal human. And he had become a symbol, whether he wanted to be or not, of cooperation between 2 species that had been enemies for generations. Princess Sarah visited him every day as promised. She was curious about everything human. She asked him about Earth, about his life before the colony, about why humans did things the way they did. In return, she told him about Velkan culture, about their history, about the war from their perspective. Jake learned that the Velkans had not started the war out of aggression. They had been expanding into space at the same time as humanity, and both species had claimed the same resources. Fear and misunderstanding had escalated into violence. Once the shooting started, it became hard to stop. Both sides committed atrocities. Both sides lost millions of lives. "My mother lost 2 of my siblings in the war," Sarah told him one afternoon. They sat in a viewing room looking down at the planet below. "She wants peace so badly because she knows what war costs. But many of our people still fear humans. They remember the battles, the deaths. They don't trust easily." "Same with humans," Jake admitted. "I fought in the war too. I saw terrible things. For a long time I hated your people. It wasn't until I came to Haven's Edge and actually met Velkans that I realized you weren't monsters. You were just people trying to survive, same as us." "That's why what you did was so important," Sarah said, her young voice surprisingly wise. "You didn't see a Velkan child. You just saw a child. That's what my mother is trying to teach everyone, that we're not so different." On his 8th day awake, Queen Zavara finally came to see him. Jake had been dreading the meeting, unsure how to act around alien royalty. But when she entered his room, accompanied only by 2 guards, she seemed less intimidating than he expected. She was tall and regal, her crystalline body more complex than her daughter's, with patterns of light moving beneath her surface. But her eyes were kind, and when she looked at him, he saw genuine gratitude. "Jake Morrison," she said, her voice carrying natural authority. "I owe you a debt that can never be fully repaid. You saved my daughter's life at the cost of your own. That is the highest honor in our culture." "Your Majesty," Jake said, standing and bowing slightly, unsure of the proper protocol. "I'm just glad she's safe. I didn't do it for honor or reward. I did it because it was right." "I know," Zavara said. "That is precisely why I invoked the Valteran Code. You acted without thought of gain. You sacrificed yourself for a stranger of another species. That kind of pure courage is rare, Jake Morrison. It deserves to be recognized." She moved closer, studying him intently. "I want you to understand what the Valtoran bond means. You are not my servant or my property. You are under my protection, yes, but you also have my trust. You will have access to resources, knowledge, technology. You will be treated as a member of my household. But I also ask something of you in return." "What's that?" Jake asked. "Be a bridge," Zavara said simply. "You understand both our peoples now. You have human courage and Velkan enhancements. You have lived both perspectives. I need someone who can see both sides, who can help prevent misunderstandings from becoming conflicts. There are those on both sides who want this peace to fail. I need people like you to prove them wrong." Jake thought about this carefully. He had wanted a quiet life, but maybe that was never really possible. Not after the war. Not after everything he had seen. Maybe this was his chance to do something that actually mattered. "I'll try," he said finally. "I can't promise I'll be good at it, but I'll try." Zavara's expression shifted in the Velkan way that meant approval. "That is all I ask. Now rest and finish your recovery. Soon you will return to Haven's Edge, and then the real work begins." After she left, Jake stood at the viewing window for a long time, looking down at the planet where his life had changed forever. He thought about the cargo hauler he had been, the simple existence he had built for himself. That person was gone now, buried under falling metal in a marketplace. Someone new had taken his place. Someone stronger. Jake stepped off the transport shuttle onto the landing pad at New Portland Spaceport. The familiar heat of Haven's Edge hit him immediately, but now he barely noticed it. His enhanced body regulated temperature better than before. Everything felt sharper, clearer. The air tasted different. He could hear conversations happening 50 meters away. Captain Hayes waited for him at the bottom of the ramp, along with a security detail. Her expression was carefully neutral, but Jake caught the tension in her shoulders. Something was wrong. "Welcome back," she said. "We need to talk privately." They drove to the military compound in silence. Jake watched the city pass by through the vehicle windows. People stared at him. Some waved. Others turned away quickly. He saw graffiti on a wall that read "Human Trader" in bright red paint. Further down, someone had written "Hero" over it. Inside Hayes's office, she locked the door and pulled down the blinds. Then she activated a small device on her desk that hummed softly. Privacy Shield, Jake recognized. Whatever she had to say, she did not want anyone else hearing it. "We have a problem," Lauren said without preamble. "A big one. I've been investigating the bombing that nearly killed you and the princess. What I found is worse than anyone expected." She pulled up a holographic display showing documents, communications logs, financial transactions. Jake studied them, his enhanced mind processing the information faster than it would have before. The Terra Liberation Front was responsible for the bombing. Lauren continued. "That much we knew. But they had help. Velkan help." Jake looked up sharply. "What?" "There's a faction within the Velkan military that opposes the peace treaty. They've been secretly funding and supplying human extremist groups. The goal is to create incidents that will force both sides back into war." "That's insane," Jake said. "Why would they want war?" "Same reason the Terra Liberation Front wants it," Lauren replied grimly. "Power, control, resources. There are people on both sides who profit from conflict. Weapons manufacturers, military contractors, politicians who built their careers on fear and hatred. Peace threatens all of that." She highlighted a name on the display, Commander Vorak. senior officer in the Velkin fleet. This one is the ringleader on their side. He lost family in the war and blames all humans. He's been working with a man named Gregory Stone, who leads the Terra Liberation Front's operations on Haven's Edge. Have you told Queen Zavara? Jake asked. I've sent reports, Lauren said, but they have to go through official channels. Military bureaucracy on both sides. It takes time. Meanwhile, I've intercepted communications suggesting they're planning something big. Soon. Jake felt cold despite the heat. Planning what? A coordinated attack, Lauren said. Hit human and Velkin targets simultaneously. Frame each side for attacking the other. Destroy any remaining trust between our peoples. Force a return to open warfare. She looked at him directly.
Jake, you're in a unique position now.
You have access to both sides. The Velkins trust you because of the Valtoran bond. Humans see you as one of their own, at least most of them. You can move freely where I can't. I need your help to stop this. Jake thought about Princess Sarah, about Queen Zavara's words about being a bridge. This was what she had meant. This was the real work. What do you need me to do? He asked. Over the next week, Jake worked with Lauren to track down the conspirators. His enhanced abilities proved useful. He could infiltrate places normal humans could not reach. His improved hearing let him eavesdrop on conversations from impossible distances. The Velkin neural enhancements gave him access to their communication networks in ways that would have been detected if a regular human tried. But it was dangerous work. The Terra Liberation Front had marked him as a priority target. Twice he narrowly avoided assassination attempts. His enhanced reflexes saved him both times, but it was clear that someone wanted him dead before he could interfere with their plans. He also faced hostility from regular people. Some humans saw him as a traitor for accepting the Velkin enhancements and the Valtoran bond. Some Velkins resented a human being elevated to such status. He was caught between two worlds, trusted by neither side, belonging to both and neither at once. One evening, Jake sat in his small apartment, studying the information Lauren had given him. He heard footsteps in the hallway outside. 4 people moving quietly but not quietly enough, not for his enhanced hearing. He recognized the pattern. Military training. They were coming for him. He moved quickly, grabbing his jacket and climbing out the window before they reached his door. He heard them break in behind him, heard their frustrated curses when they found the room empty. He dropped 3 stories to the alley below, his reinforced bones absorbing the impact easily. Running through the dark streets, Jake realized he could not keep hiding. The conspirators were getting desperate. That meant they were close to making their move. He needed to find them before they could launch their attack. He contacted Lauren through a secure channel. They're accelerating their timeline. I think it's happening tomorrow. How do you know? She asked. Because they just tried to kill me again. They wouldn't risk exposing themselves like that unless they were about to move. Lauren was quiet for a moment. I found something. A warehouse on the south side, registered to a dummy corporation, but the financial trail leads back to Commander Vorak and Gregory Stone. If they're planning something big, that's where they'll stage it from. Send me the location, Jake said. I'm going there now. Jake, wait for backup. Don't go in alone. If they're moving tomorrow, we don't have time for backup. I need to know what they're planning. I'll be careful. The warehouse sat in an industrial district surrounded by abandoned factories and storage facilities. Jake approached carefully, using the shadows and his enhanced senses to avoid detection. He heard voices inside. Human and Velkin both speaking in urgent tones. He found a window high up on the wall and climbed up silently. Through the dirty glass, he could see into the warehouse interior. His breath caught in his throat at what he saw. Weapons, explosives, enough firepower to level half the city, and in the center of it all 2 figures stood talking. One was human, tall and scarred. Gregory Stone, leader of the Terra Liberation Front. The other was Velkin, his crystalline body marked with military insignia. Commander Vorak. Jake activated his recording device and listened carefully. His enhanced hearing picked up every word. Tomorrow at noon, Stone was saying. We hit the Colonial Administration Building and the Velkin Embassy simultaneously. The bombs are identical, military grade. Each side will think the other attacked them. And the princess will be at the embassy for the peace ceremony. Vorak added with cold satisfaction. Her death will be blamed on human terrorists. Queen Zavara will have no choice but to respond with force. Jake felt rage building in his chest. They were going to kill Sarah. After everything, after all the hope for peace, they were going to kill a child just to restart a war. He needed to get this recording to Lauren, needed to warn everyone. But as he began to move away from the window, his foot slipped on the wet metal. The sound was small, but in the quiet warehouse it echoed like a gunshot. "Someone's here," Vorak snapped. "Find them," Jake ran. He heard shouts behind him, heard weapons being charged. He dropped from the building and sprinted across the industrial complex, using every bit of his enhanced speed. Plasma bolts scorched the ground around him. He zigzagged, making himself a difficult target. He made it to the street and dove behind a parked vehicle just as a bolt took out the wall behind where his head had been. His heart pounded. He was outnumbered and outgunned, but he had what he needed: evidence of the conspiracy. Proof that would expose both Stone and Vorak. He transmitted the recording to Lauren, then prepared to move again. But before he could, a voice called out from the darkness. "Jake Morrison, come out now and we'll make this quick. Try to run and we'll make you suffer," Stone's voice. Close. Too close. Jake looked around desperately. He was trapped. They were closing in from all sides. His enhanced abilities made him stronger and faster, but he was not invincible. If they surrounded him, if they coordinated their attack, he would go down. But then he heard something else. The whine of engines. The roar of transport vehicles. Lights flooded the street as military haulers arrived from both directions. Human and Vulcan forces working together. Lauren's voice came over a loudspeaker. "This is Captain Hayes. You are surrounded. Lay down your weapons immediately." Chaos erupted. Some of the conspirators tried to fight. Others attempted to flee. But the combined human and Vulcan forces had them outnumbered and outpositioned. The battle was brief and decisive. Jake stood up from behind the vehicle as the last shots were fired. Lauren ran over to him, her face tight with worry. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," Jake said, though his hands were shaking from adrenaline. "Did you get them all?" "Stone and Vorak both, alive, along with most of their people. Your recording gave us everything we needed. Proof of the conspiracy, evidence of their plans. This is over, Jake. You stopped a war." Jake looked at the captured conspirators being led away in restraints. Humans and Vulcans who had worked together to destroy peace. Now they would face justice together. "Not just me," he said quietly. "All of us. Working together. That's how it should be." The trial lasted 3 months. Jake testified for 2 full days, telling everything he knew about the conspiracy. His recording of Stone and Vorak's conversation became the centerpiece of the prosecution's case. Both men were found guilty of terrorism, conspiracy to commit mass murder, and attempting to incite war between 2 civilizations. Their sentences were severe. They would spend the rest of their lives in prison, watched over by both human and Vulcan guards. But the trial did more than just punish the guilty. It forced both species to confront an uncomfortable truth. The threat to peace had not come from outside. It had come from within. Extremists on both sides working together to destroy what millions of others had sacrificed to build. Public opinion shifted dramatically. Humans who had been suspicious of the Vulcans saw footage of Vulcan soldiers working alongside human forces to stop the conspiracy. Vulcans who distrusted humanity watched Jake Morrison, a human, risk his life to save their princess and then risk it again to preserve peace. The propaganda that had sustained hatred for so long began to lose its power. Queen Zavara called for Jake to meet with her privately after the verdicts were announced. He found her in a garden aboard her flagship, tending to plants that glowed with soft bioluminescence. She looked up as he approached and gestured for him to sit beside her on a stone bench. "You have done well, Jake Morrison," she said. "Better than I dared hope when I first invoked the Valteran Code. You have proven that a human can carry the honor of my household with dignity and courage." "I had a lot of help," Jake replied. "Captain Hayes, your security forces, Princess Sarah even. Everyone played a part." "True," Zavara agreed, "but you were the catalyst. Your sacrifice in the marketplace inspired others to look beyond old hatreds. Your work to stop the conspiracy showed both our peoples that cooperation is not only possible, but necessary." She turned to face him directly. "I have a proposal for you, and for Captain Hayes as well. I want to create a new organization. A corps of individuals, both human and Vulcan, who are trained to work between our civilizations. Peacekeepers, mediators, investigators, People who can move freely in both worlds and help prevent future conflicts. You want to make more people like me, Jake said. Enhanced, connected to both sides. Not exactly, Zavara said. The enhancements would be optional. Not everyone needs them. But yes, I want to create a bridge core. People who understand both cultures, who can speak both languages, who are trusted by both sides. I want you to lead it. Jake was quiet for a long moment, considering. It was a huge responsibility. Bigger than anything he had ever imagined taking on. But he thought about Princess Sarah, about all the children on both sides who deserved to grow up without war. He thought about the conspirators, the hatred that had almost destroyed everything. I'll do it, he said finally. On one condition, this can't be just your organization or just a human organization. It has to belong to both peoples equally. Joint command, joint funding, joint oversight. Otherwise, people will see it as one side controlling the other. Zavara's expression shifted in the way that meant deep satisfaction. Wise words. Yes, that is exactly how it should be. I will propose it to the human colonial government immediately. And I believe Captain Hayes would be an excellent choice to share command with you. The proposal was accepted by both governments within a week. The Valtoran Guardian Corps was officially established 2 months later. The first training facility opened on Haven's Edge, symbolically built on the exact site where the marketplace bombing had occurred. Where destruction once stood, now there would be education and cooperation. The first class of recruits included both humans and Velkans, young people who had grown up during the war but wanted something different for the future. They came from all backgrounds. Some were former soldiers looking for a new purpose. Others were civilians who simply believed in peace. All of them were willing to dedicate themselves to building bridges between their species. Jake stood before them on their first day of training. Lauren Hayes stood beside him, her military experience proving invaluable in developing the training program. Behind them, Princess Sarah watched from the observation gallery. She had insisted on attending, wanting to see the legacy of Jake's sacrifice taking shape. You all know why you're here, Jake began, his voice carrying across the training hall. You want to prevent war. You want to build peace. Those are good goals, noble goals. But I need to be honest with you about what this job really means. He walked among the recruits, meeting their eyes, human and Velkan both, all looking at him with hope and determination. Being a guardian means being caught between two worlds. Neither side will fully trust you at first. Both sides will expect more from you than they expect from their own people. You'll face prejudice from those who think you've betrayed your species by working with the other. You'll face danger from those who want this peace to fail. It's not an easy path, he paused, letting that sink in. Then he smiled slightly. But it's also the most important work you'll ever do. Every conflict you prevent, every misunderstanding you resolve, every time you show both sides that cooperation works better than confrontation, you make the future safer. Not just for humans or Velkans, but for everyone who comes after us. Lauren stepped forward. The training will be hard. We'll push you physically, mentally, and emotionally. You'll learn both languages fluently. You'll study both cultures in depth. You'll train in combat, diplomacy, investigation, and crisis management. Some of you won't make it through. That's okay. This job isn't for everyone. But for those of you who do make it, Jake continued, you'll become something new. Not human, not Velkan, but something that belongs to both. You'll be living proof that our species can work together, trust each other, protect each other. You'll be the future we're all trying to build. The recruits listened in silence. Jake could see the understanding dawning in their eyes. This was not going to be easy, but it was going to be worth it. The months that followed were intense. Jake threw himself into building the Guardian Corps, working alongside Lauren to develop training programs, establish protocols, create the infrastructure that would support operations across dozens of worlds. It was exhausting work, but also deeply satisfying. The first class graduated 6 months later. 32 Guardians, evenly split between humans and Velkans. They looked sharp in their uniforms, which incorporated design elements from both cultures. They wore insignia that combined human and Velkan symbols into something new and unique. Queen Zavara attended the graduation ceremony personally. So did the human colonial governor. It was a powerful statement, seeing the two leaders standing side by side, watching their people come together. Jake gave the commencement address. He kept it short and simple, knowing these young guardians did not need grand speeches. They needed truth. I wasn't trying to be a hero when I threw myself over Princess Sarah in that marketplace. I was just doing what felt right in the moment. Protecting someone who needed help. That's all any of us can do, really. See someone who needs help and choose to help them. It sounds simple because it is simple. But simple doesn't mean easy. He looked at the assembled guardians. You're going out into worlds where fear and hatred still exist? Where people on both sides would rather fight than talk. Your job is to stand between them and show them there's another way. Not by force. Not by tricks or manipulation. But by being living examples of what cooperation looks like. Some days you'll prevent wars. Other days you'll just help a human and a Velkin have a conversation without it turning into an argument. Both are important. Both matter. Never forget that the biggest changes often start with the smallest actions. After the ceremony, Princess Sarah approached him. She had grown considerably in the year since the bombing. She stood taller now, her crystalline body more complex and mature. But her eyes still held that same curiosity and kindness he remembered from their first meeting. I'm starting diplomatic training next month, she told him. Mother says I need to prepare to take a more active role in government. You'll be great at it, Jake said sincerely. You've always been good at seeing past surfaces to what really matters. I learned that from you, Sarah replied. When you saved me, you didn't see a Velkin princess or even a Velkin child. You just saw someone who needed help. That lesson has stayed with me. I want to build a future where everyone can see each other that way. Jake felt a swell of pride. This was why it had all been worth it. Not for fame or honor, but for the chance to inspire someone like Sarah, to help create a generation that saw cooperation as natural rather than impossible. 5 years passed. The Valtering Guardian Corps expanded to 20 installations across human and Velkin space. Hundreds of Guardians now served, working to prevent conflicts, resolve disputes, and build understanding between species. Their success rate was remarkable. Dozens of potential wars had been averted. Thousands of smaller conflicts resolved peacefully. Jake still led the organization alongside Lauren, but now they had help. A council of senior guardians, both human and Velkin, shared the workload and decision-making. The program had taken on a life of its own, growing beyond anything he had imagined that day in Queen Zavra's garden. Haven's Edge had transformed as well. The tentative peace of 5 years ago had become genuine cooperation. Mixed neighborhoods where humans and Velkins lived side by side had become common. Businesses catering to both species thrived. Children of both races played together in parks without fear or suspicion. On the anniversary of the marketplace bombing, a memorial was unveiled at the site. It showed a human figure sheltering a Velkin child, cast in metal that combined alloys from both civilizations. Below it, a plaque read simply, "In memory of those lost, in honor of those who chose peace." Jake stood before the memorial with Lauren, Princess Sarah, and Queen Zavara. A crowd had gathered, thousands of humans and Velkins coming together to remember the day that had changed everything. "Do you ever regret it?" Lauren asked him quietly. "Giving up your quiet life?" Jake thought about the question seriously. He thought about the simple cargo hauler he had been, content to work and rest and ask for nothing more. That life seemed so far away now, like a dream from someone else's past. "No," he said finally. "I don't regret it. That life was safe and comfortable, but it wasn't meaningful. This is hard, but it matters. Every guardian we train, every conflict we prevent, every person we help see past their prejudices, that makes a difference. That's worth more than comfort." Sarah, now a respected diplomat in her own right, smiled at him. "Mother told me something once. She said that the Valtoran bond was not about binding you to serve us. It was about recognizing that you already embodied the ideals our empire was supposed to represent. Honor, courage, selflessness. You taught us as much as we taught you." "We taught each other," Jake corrected gently. "That's how it should be. Neither side having all the answers, but both sides willing to learn from each other." Later that evening, Jake walked through the Guardian training facility, watching new recruits practice hand-to-hand combat techniques that blended human and Velkin martial arts. He saw humans and Velkins working together seamlessly, trusting each other completely. A young recruit noticed him and approached nervously. She was human, probably no more than 20 years old. "Commander Morrison," she said, snapping to attention. I wanted to thank you. My parents died in the war. I grew up hating Velkans because of it. But watching what you've built here, working alongside Velkan recruits these past few months, I've realized that hate was pointless. They're not monsters. They're just people like us. You showed me that. Jake put a hand on her shoulder. I didn't show you anything. You figured it out yourself. I just created a space where you could learn. That's all any of us can do. Create spaces where people can see past their fears and prejudices. The rest, they have to do themselves. As the recruit returned to her training, Jake looked out the window at the city beyond. Lights from human and Velkan buildings mixed together, creating a tapestry of illumination against the night sky. Two civilizations, once enemies, now partners in building something better. He thought back to that moment in the marketplace when he had seen a child in danger and made a choice without thinking. Just doing what felt right. He had not known then that his simple act would lead to all this. The Guardian Corps, the improved relations, the hope for lasting peace. But maybe that was the point. You did not do the right thing because you expected grand consequences. You did it because it was right. The consequences took care of themselves. Jake Morrison was no longer the person he had been 5 years ago. He was stronger, enhanced, connected to both civilizations in ways that made him unique. He was a symbol, a leader, a bridge between worlds. But at his core, he was still just a man who had seen a child in danger and chosen to help. Everything else had grown from that single moment of simple humanity, and that, Jake thought, was exactly how it should be. Grand changes starting from simple choices. Peace built one small act of courage at a time. He turned from the window and headed back to his office. There was work to do. New guardians to train. New bridges to build. New chances to show both species that cooperation was not just possible, but natural. The war was over. The peace was holding. And every day, humans and Velkans were learning to see each other not as aliens or enemies, but as partners in building a better future. It had all started with one man shielding one child. Sometimes, Jake thought with a smile, that was all it took to change the galaxy.